Tonight, the White House announces a new strategy to combat COVID-19. The focus on mask and vaccine requirements, a point of contention across America. Plus, the latest on Afghanistan, with some planes with Americans on board now allowed to take off. And clear and present danger.
They told me and the women standing around me that they wanted to kill us all.
Women in Afghanistan fear for their lives as the Taliban install a new government. All this and more tonight on Faith Nation. The White House issues sweeping new requirements to combat the coronavirus. Welcome to Faith Nation. I'm John Jessup. We will get to our top story in just a moment, but first, movement on that Texas heartbeat bill. The Justice Department announcing this afternoon a lawsuit against the Lone Star State over the new law, which effectively bans abortion statewide.
SB 8 bans nearly all abortions in the state after 6 weeks of pregnancy, before many women even know they are pregnant, and months before a pregnancy is viable. It does so even in cases of rape, sexual abuse, or incest. The act is clearly unconstitutional under long-standing Supreme Court precedent.
The lawsuit comes days after President Biden instructed the DOJ to explore all actions to challenge the Texas measure, setting up what is sure to be a showdown between the federal government and the Lone Star State. Back to our top story. President Biden announced new executive orders mandating COVID shots for all federal employees and contractors with no exceptions, all in an effort to stop the current rising tide of COVID-19. CBN's Brody Carter joins us with more on the new federal mandates. Brody.
Well, John, in a boisterous move of executive power, President Biden announcing a sweeping federal vaccine mandate impacting as many as 100 million Americans. All employers with more than 100 workers will require them to be vaccinated and test for viruses every week. It comes as 75% of Americans have gotten at least one dose of the COVID-19 vaccine. Still, Americans are getting infected at 10 times the rate needed to end the pandemic. Here's what the president had to say earlier.
Tonight, I'm using that same authority to expand that to cover those who work in hospitals, home health care facilities, or other medical facilities, a total of 17 million healthcare workers. If you're seeking care at a health facility, you should be able to know that the people treating you are vaccinated.
The executive orders requiring all federal employees and federal contractors be vaccinated, affecting an estimated 4 million workers. Meanwhile, recent numbers show a sharp increase in COVID, with around 150,000 new cases daily and 1,500 deaths each day. While caseloads in the South are settling, numbers are now rising in the Great Plains and Northwest. And a concerning statistic on children, 250,000 kids caught COVID in the last week. There have been 470 total pediatric deaths since the pandemic started. As the Delta virus tightens its grip, the Mu variant has now been identified in almost all 50 states. Today, the White House and the executive orders are to protect the American people.
And we expect federal employees will have about 75 days to be fully vaccinated. That gives people more than enough time, in our view, to start and complete their vaccination series. If a federal worker fails to comply, they will go through the standard HR process, which includes counseling and face disciplinary action.
Today, the president announced 6 areas of focus in an effort to mitigate the spread of both Delta and Mu variants. As the White House continues to push to vaccinate the unvaccinated, roughly 25% still need to get their first shot. Now, the second area of focus is furthering protections for the vaccinated, including booster shots, which could be approved as early as the end of this month. Now, the president is also calling for regular COVID testing at all schools to keep the educated centers open safely, in addition to bolstering testing and mask requirements for the nation. Now, the president also putting precedents on our economic recovery while improving the care for those currently fighting COVID-19. Now, next up, the president will call for a global summit to be held during the UN General Assembly. That'll be later this month, hopeful to boost vaccine supply to the developing world. John, back to you.
All right, CBN's Brody Carter. Thank you so much, Brody. Well, here with us now is Dr. Chris Winter. He's a neurologist and book author. Dr. Winter, thank you so much for being with us today on Faith Nation. These new mandates, how much do they help in the fight to end the COVID pandemic? And is there, Dr. Winter, a downside to the new requirements?
Thanks for having me. I'm not sure what's going to happen with the new requirements in terms of we'll have to see how they work out. I think they are reasonable measures. As a physician who works in a hospital, mandatory vaccinations are nothing new to our population. We do it all the time in an effort to keep those we work with and the patients we take care of safe. I'm very concerned as a doctor who takes care of children about not only their health, but trying to maintain some semblance of normalcy in their lives and keeping them in school. It's just been very disappointing to me, the pushback against simple things like mask wearing and vaccinations. It's just surprising to me that we're in this place right now. And the numbers really don't lie. They are starting to soar in places around the country. And I think we're going to repeat some of the things that we've been through already unnecessarily.
As a practicing physician, Dr. Winter, I want to ask, have you had those tough conversations with some patients who might not want to get the vaccine, who are skeptical about the shots and how quickly that they became available? How do you walk them through these difficult decisions?
Absolutely. I mean, I think that conversation requires a belief that the science that we're providing them is real. And so that's where it sort of starts. It starts also, number two, with the conversation that I've had both of my vaccines and will happily take a booster. When you look at the data in terms of not only this vaccination, but other vaccinations that are routinely given, the safety outcomes are fantastic when compared to the alternatives. Even just the Johnson & Johnson vaccine and the scare that was, out there about blood clots. If you compare those numbers with the numbers of something like a birth control pill, they're not even close. And sometimes, sitting down and really exploring what the magnitudes of these numbers mean can really help patients or the caregivers of patients make educated and informed decisions.
Dr. Winter, some people are weighing in wondering why there isn't more emphasis on therapeutics. Your thoughts on this?
I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I do think that, in these times, trying to figure out what works and what doesn't is very important. I mean, but then those kinds of messages get lost with, misinformation about drugs like ivermectin, which, as I look through social media and platforms that sort of propagate that kind of information, it's very disappointing that the conversations that's going on about that, where people are rushing to use a horse dewormer, but they're skeptical about a drug or a vaccine that's got a lot of science behind it. So I do think that the therapeutics are important, but those things we don't have as much control over as wearing a mask, practicing social distancing, and getting a vaccine if it's appropriate for you to get one.
Dr. Winter, we have about 30 seconds left. I want to know, it's 18 months for those of us here in the United States into the pandemic. What's it going to take to overcome COVID-19? Do we rely on medical science? Is it public health procedures? Is it collective resolve or something more?
I think it's everything. I think it's open and honest communications. And I think that it really begins with the conversations we have within our own families, within our own communities and organizations, and really just, it's okay. We don't need to shame people who are skeptical or concerned about vaccines. There's a lot of bad information out there. We just need to engage properly, let people voice their concerns, and hopefully have back and forth that can really make a difference.
Dr. Chris Winter, we are out of time, so thank you so much for being with us today and offering your insights.
My pleasure. Good luck to everybody.
Coming up, the plight of people still trying to make their way out of Afghanistan, why the Taliban is allowing some to flee and keeping others in place.
Introducing the CBN Bible from CBN.com. Now, an easier way to study the Bible and grow in your faith. Highlight your favorite verse. Read separate versions at a glance. Click and read a commentary, or cross-reference your favorite verse using the Strong's Concordance. All the right tools to study the Bible, all in one place. The CBN Bible, available at cbn.com/Bible or the iTunes App Store.
This is CBN News Watch.
Thanks for joining us.
Watch breaking news, exclusive stories and programs, credible news reporting.
We show you what's happening in the world and how you can pray about it.
This is CBN News Watch, because truth matters. Weekdays at 5 on the CBN News Channel.
Woohoo! Hi, Superbook fans. Here's something else you'll love. It's the new Superbook Bible app. It's packed with games, activities, and Superbook episodes that you can watch for free. Oh, no! There's trivia, a fun daily devotional, and answers to your Bible questions. Plus, an easy-to-understand Bible the whole family will enjoy. You can even create your own Superbook character. Ta-da! Whoa!
No super balls, man. Come with...
Sorry, pardon me. Sorry, excuse me. Ouch!
Are you getting this?
Earn super points to win daily prizes, too. And so much more! Time to get back to my adventures. See you soon! It's the new Superbook Bible app. Free downloads on iTunes, Google Play, and Amazon.
Welcome back, and turning to the Middle East. With the Kabul International Airport once again operational, more Americans managed to fly out of Afghanistan today. The government confirming U.S. citizens were among the nearly 200 foreigners who left. CBN News national security correspondent Caitlin Burke joins me now. Caitlin, what more do we know about the flight that took off from Kabul today?
So, John, this is a pretty big deal. It is a key step in negotiations between the United States and the new Afghan government. We know that that flight has safely landed in Doha. Now, the State Department says that it has a list of all the Americans who are still in Afghanistan, and basically they let everyone know, hey, this flight is happening, or excuse me, they didn't let everyone know. They said they had a list of 30 people. They know some people are not ready to leave yet. So they contacted the people who they felt had the best shot at getting to the airport and getting on this flight. So we had some Americans, we had some lawful permanent residents. Not every one of those 30 people said yes. So we're not hearing an exact number, but we know it was less than 30 who were on that flight, but more flights are expected to continue like that one.
Caitlin, we've been hearing about charter planes held up as well at an airport farther north in Mazar-e-Sharif. Any movement there?
So according to the State Department, as of right now, those planes have not left the airport. Now, those are charter planes that were chartered by Glenn Beck's charity organization. And Beck earlier this week said that initially the problem was the State Department. He said that there was a holdup there, and then the Taliban was alerted to the fact that these planes weren't taking off and stepped in. So everyone had to deplane. Papers had to be given to the Taliban, which you can imagine if you're an at-risk Afghan, then that is terrifying. So some of them actually fled the airport. So as of now, the State Department says they believe that everyone on the manifest should be allowed to leave. And as I said, that includes at-risk Afghans, that includes Americans. It also includes lawful permanent residents. And the State Department says they're not the problem. It's really in the Taliban's court. State Department also made sure to say they appreciate all of the private efforts to get people out, and they are working to better assist those.
All right, some very good information there. CBN's Caitlin Burke, thank you so much for being with us.
Thanks, John.
Well, this Saturday marks 20 years since 9/11, and this week pretrial hearings for those behind the attacks, including the so-called mastermind of the plan, are underway. A lawyer for one defendant is highlighting the procedural delays driving why the case has taken so long, calling attention to evidence obtained under torture in CIA black sites.
One of the most important issues in the case is how the torture of these men is going to ultimately affect the trial. And trials mean evidence. And the destruction of evidence, the intentional destruction of evidence, takes away from the defense and really the American people information about what actually happened.
Sheikh Mohammed, known as KSM, a senior al-Qaeda leader considered to be the architect of the 9/11 attacks, along with 4 others, face a military commission trial. The hearing this week is the first under a new judge, the 7th overall to oversee the case. Well, here with us now is Bill Roggio, senior fellow and editor for the Foundation of Defense of Democracy's Long War Journal. Bill, thank you so much for coming on Faith Nation tonight. The hearings of KSM, Khalid Sheikh Mohammed, and 4 others involved in the 9/11 attacks, it's been 20 years since those attacks. When will justice be served? Bill, can you hear me?
Yes.
As I was saying, 20 years since the 9/11 attacks. When will justice be served as it regards KSM and the 4 others involved in the 9/11 attacks?
It's certainly a great question. We have had 20 years of KSM's been in custody for well over 16 years now, and he still can't get to trial. It's a mystery to me why, with the evidence that's been amassed, with him being in detention, why he can't be properly tried. It's a complete travesty. The entire Guantanamo process, the military commission process, has been a mess from the start. Whatever you think about Guantanamo, it's quite clear KSM's role, Sheikh Mohammed's role in 9/11, that he should be being prosecuted right now, and yet this entire process is in limbo, and it's inexplicable.
Well, we know that 20 years ago this Saturday, 9/11 was the genesis for our invasion in the war in Afghanistan. The Taliban, now taking over, is allowing flights out of Kabul, and Americans were among the 200 or so people evacuated today. Bill, what about other planes full of refugees, including planes still grounded in Mazar-e-Sharif?
Yeah, that's the question. Look, I think the Taliban is using the Americans and the Afghans and others who want to leave the country as a bargaining chip, as hostages, so to speak. They'll let them out slowly. The question is, are they being given concessions for this? The Taliban have said they're free to leave, and yet it's been well over a week since the last U.S. soldier left Afghanistan. It's been 10 days now, and there are still American citizens who want to leave the country, are still there. We can't say when. I think the Taliban are keeping them there to extract concessions. They are essentially hostages to the Taliban and their bargaining chips. The Taliban wants things like people, their members at Guantanamo freed. They want to be their leaders taken off sanctions list. They want U.S. money, that is money in U.S. banks that belongs to the Afghan government, transferred. And I think they're going to hold out until they get some of what they want.
I want to move to, in the minute that we have left, the Taliban. It appears now stronger and well-funded, perhaps even more so than it was 20 years ago. It, of course, provided terror safe haven for al-Qaeda's planning of the 9/11 attacks. As we approach the 20th anniversary of those attacks, Bill, how safe is the homeland?
Well, Homeland Security certainly has improved, but Al-Qaeda and the Islamic State, they have bigger goals than just conducting terror attacks here in the United States. That is merely a tactic. They seek to establish their global caliphate. They want their global Islamic State, and that's what they're working towards. And the more we give them the time, space to execute their goals, they have a state now in Afghanistan, and they've had one in Iraq and Syria, and we've seen the consequences of allowing them to do that. The longer they have that, the more dangerous it is to keep here in the United States and Americans and our allies abroad.
All right, Bill Roggio with the Foundation for Defense of Democracies. Thank you so much for being with us, and thank you so much for your insights.
Thank you.
Well, coming up, a closer look at what newly formed Taliban government means for Afghan women, right after the break.
When I came to Regent University, it's like the world opened up. I felt like I needed to advance my career and go back to school. Regent was a perfect fit for me. The Regent professors are world class. You are equipped. The focus of the faculty is on each individual student, whether it's online or in person. You become a part of Regent's family. You carry with you not just the content and the knowledge, but the confidence to understand that we can be significant in the world.
Regent University. Follow your path.
Nigerian Christians
in Iran are routinely arrested.
Happily, Christians continue to suffer.
In times of trial and affliction, you need to know the truth.
One of the fastest growing Christian populations in the world.
Join Wendy Griffith and George Thomas for Christian World News.
Young people are the ones who are open to the gospel.
Powerful stories of suffering and hope that affect all Christians. Saturday night at 6 on the CBN News Channel. Get Protect Your Sleep and discover how to improve the quality of your life. A free DVD or booklet from the Christian Broadcasting Network.
If you're not a great sleeper, you can do things to make yourself a great sleeper. If you're already a pretty good sleeper, you can enhance your sleep and be even better.
5 leading experts help remove the obstacles between you and restorative sleep.
When you don't get a restful night's sleep, you wake up with an accumulation of stress.
Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet today.
Everything you do better with a good night's sleep.
You'll discover how food affects your sleep, how to put insomnia to rest, explore effective remedies for sleep apnea, and much more in Protect Your Sleep. Wake up to your best life and get Protect Your Sleep today. Call 1-800-700-7000 or go to cbn.com to get your free DVD or booklet.
Welcome back. The Taliban is disbanding the ministry that once championed women's rights, replacing it with a department notorious for carrying out horrific human rights abuses, the feared and hated Ministry of Vice and Virtue. As CBN's George Thomas reports.
Mariam, not her real name, emerged after days of hiding to withdraw money from a bank in Kabul when she, along with dozens of other women standing in line, were suddenly surrounded by armed Taliban fighters.
They told me and the women standing around me that they wanted to kill us all.
In an exclusive interview with CBN News, Mariam, a Christian convert from Islam, told us she thought she was going to die.
They called us infidels, that we weren't Islamic enough, and wanted to know why we had left our homes without our husbands.
The Taliban fired their weapons into the air to disperse the women.
God really protected us. The owner of the bank quickly opened the doors so we could rush in for safety.
The frightening moment happening shortly after the Taliban announced their new government leaders. Among them, by the way, 4 radical Islamists who once served in Guantanamo Bay on terrorism-related charges.
This is a cabinet that only al-Qaeda could love.
The new man tapped to run Afghanistan's internal security, Sirajuddin Haqqani, is on the FBI's most wanted list and comes from a family accused of killing Americans and Afghan civilians.
The Haqqani network is one of the most formidable and murderous terrorist networks in the world.
The FBI has a $10 million reward for information leading to Haqqani's arrest.
The FBI no longer needs to wonder about his location. He's going to be helping to govern from Kabul.
Secretary of State Antony Blinken warning that this new Taliban government will have to earn its legitimacy.
We understand the Taliban has presented this as a caretaker cabinet. We will judge it and them by its actions.
On the streets of Kabul and other big cities, protest and outrage against the new hardline government.
These are dark days in my country. These are all dangerous people. These are terrorists who are blacklisted.
Tawfiq, also a Christian convert from Islam, told CBN News in an exclusive interview from Kabul that neither the United States nor any other foreign government should give the Taliban legitimacy.
How can they? The Taliban have crazy Islamic ideas and don't believe in human rights.
The all-male leadership also disbanded the Ministry of Women's Affairs and reinstated the Ministry of Vice and Virtue, one of the most feared and hated departments during the Taliban's last regime. Its forces would regularly beat, stone, and hang women in public.
The Ministry of Vice and Virtue has a horrific history, and some of the worst atrocities under Taliban rule in the 90s can be traced back to that ministry and people associated with it. They're the ones that were responsible for putting women in soccer stadiums and stoning them to death.
The Taliban has also once again banned women's sports, claiming that it goes against Islam's Sharia law.
Islam and the Islamic Emirate do not allow women to play cricket or play the kind of sports where they get exposed. We will not ignore Islamic values, even if it causes opposition. We will not leave our Islamic rules.
Mariam says the encounter with the Taliban fighters at the bank really shook her up. She, along with 20 other Christians, are crammed in a house in Kabul, hiding from the regime's fighters and pondering their uncertain future.
I know that the Taliban are strict Islamic believers, but I'm asking Christians around the world to pray for the Taliban, that the Lord would touch their hearts and someday they will know the real kingdom of God and the real king of the world, and that's Jesus.
George Thomas, CBN News.
Christians around the world are standing with the Israelis. But why? In CBN's free magazine, Friends of Israel, you'll discover why Christians are supporting the Jewish state, how Israel is fulfilling prophecy as a light to the nations, and ways you can pray for the people of Israel. Israel needs the support of friends like you. Call now or go to cbn.com to get your free copy of Friends of Israel.
Heavenly Father, we do thank you for the work of your Spirit, Lord God, with this movement of getting the Bible,
yes,
Lord, into public schools.
Watch The Prayer Link. Tuesday morning at 7:30 on the CBN News Channel.
Finally tonight, high schoolers today weren't alive during the 9/11 attacks, but that's not stopping some of them from remembering the day and promising never to forget. Dozens of students from the Olathe West High School in Kansas placed nearly 3,000 flags into the ground. Each flag represents one of the lives lost during the September 11th, 2001 attacks. The students say they appreciate the deep meaning of the temporary memorial, adding that by remembering 9/11, they can also show how much they value all of the brave heroes that keep us safe today. What a great lesson. Well, thank you so much for watching Faith Nation tonight. We hope to see you again right back here tomorrow.